first speaker up tonight. Before introducing my buddy Jon here, I just want to thank everyone again for coming. I hope you get just a taste of the diverse business community that we have in Madeira. It really is an amazing community. I know we get credit for the banks and the nail salons. I get it. I hear it. I see it. But hopefully tonight is just a small glimpse into the just a piece of the amazing business community that we've got. Last but certainly not least, our fifth speaker tonight is Jon Flood, who will speak about finding one's way home. He's been the man behind the camera all night. I'm sure you've seen him behind a regular photography camera as well. Pleasure to welcome my friend Jon Flood.
Hi, guys. I do want to say something, and I want to preface that this story is deep, it's raw, and it's going to trigger some emotions. It may be hard, some hard images to process, so I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't break the law. I didn't go to jail. I didn't do stupid things, but, discretion is advised. So please, for the young ones, I won't be offended if anybody needs to leave the room. So by the end of this story, I want to let you know I believe in angels, but I believe in demons. And I believe that anybody can get sick, hurt, or fall. But once we allow ourselves to fall through the darkness to the bottom of the hole is when we can start to see the light and gain the strength to rise from the ashes and fight the darkness and the demons and be stronger than when we fell. Growing up in Chicago, I was born in 1980 in Chicago, down the street from Wrigley Field, home of the Chicago Cubs, and also where my father had been a bat boy from 1968 and 69. He couldn't make his high school baseball team, so he forced me to play baseball starting at a young age to live out his dreams. He wanted me to play baseball in the major leagues, be a Chicago cop, and then a lawyer and follow his footsteps. My mom, on the other hand, came from a loving, middle-class Polish family. She was raised by incredible parents, her older brother and cousins. She was a gifted artist. She could draw, paint, and create almost anything with her hands. She was an amazing chef, having learned from her grandmother and generations of Polish women before her. As if that wasn't enough, she was also the first female telephone installer in the 1970s in Illinois. She was an early champion for women's rights, even earning an award for her trailblazing work. Her most cherished accomplishment was becoming a mom to my two younger brothers and I. When we were kids, we were lucky enough to come across a VHS camcorder. My mom decided to make a Christmas Birth of Christ movie for the family as a special gift. And in reality, she was teaching my brothers and me how to direct, act, work a camera, and unleash our creativity, all at 2, 4, and 6 years old. And my mom bought me a used cassette tape recorder, and I had dreams of creating radio shows. However, that ended up recording home, what I ended up recording at home were more of real life horror stories. Pause it. One 4th of July, my father was in the basement, very drunk. We could hear him yelling and swearing on the phone. He eventually came upstairs and in front of all of us demanded that my mother give him his gun. He confessed to us an affair with his secretary for the last 10 years, and my mom refused to hand it over. Enraged, he stormed back into the room with a heavy phone book and threw it at her, hitting her in the head, and he screamed, "Find a divorce lawyer and I'll bury you in this house and take everything." And we were terrified. We ended up piling into a car and drove as far as we could, heading into a cabin for a few days. And when we returned, he acted as if nothing happened. I'm not sure what happened behind the scenes, but that night was a nightmare and I'll never forget it. We had been hit and screamed at him before for small things, but that night it felt like he had truly become a demon. The move to the suburbs. In 1990, my dad made amends. He tried to make amends by moving us to the Chicago suburbs, but the problem was my dad was rarely home, and when he was either screaming or breaking things. And my brothers and I rode our bikes around the neighborhood to see if his car was parked outside or around the corner. His car was parked outside around the corner bar, and we knew that night would be rough. So we made the most of the times that he wasn't there. And during those moments, my brothers and I would make short films around the house. And sometimes it was claymation, and other times we'd animate our G.I. Joes and dress up as Spider-Man and jump off the staircase railing. We were always filming something. And one night, I heard the sound of screaming and thumping and coming from the room below mine. And my mom burst into my bedroom and, pause it, he followed her in, throwing her to the ground, hitting her and pulling her hair as she screamed and cried. I ran to my brother's room and found a wooden baseball bat under the bed. I rushed back. I swung as hard as I could, hitting him into the ribs and shouting, "Get off of her." He snatched the bat from my hands, and I stood there as a 10-year-old child with my chest out, expecting him to hit me with it. I raised the bat, about to strike, but then stopped. Instead, he threw it out the window and grabbed me by the arm and screamed, "You used that bat to hit me, and this is how you show me respect?" And then he beat me. I know I saved my mom from something worse that night, but it wasn't the end of the nightmare. One January morning, after enduring more beatings and seeing my mom suffer, I couldn't take it anymore. I ran out the front door and slammed it behind me and bolted out barefoot in the snow, making about half a mile to the gas station down the street. I begged the cashier to call the police, and when they arrived, they pulled to my father outside to talk to him. But because my dad was an attorney and a former Chicago police officer, he had connections. He knew the officers that showed up, and they didn't even bother talking to my mom or my brothers. They left, and nothing happened to him. Corruption was the name of his game. My mother's brother and my uncle was furious. He showed up to our house with a rifle and tossed a can of beer to my dad and asked him to step outside in front of all of us. It was his way of handling things, the Chicago way, since the law had failed us. But my dad wouldn't go outside, despite my uncle's best intentions. We sent my uncle home, the hero he wanted to be. Once again, we packed up and drove as far as we could, finding a hotel to stay in for a few days just to keep safe. High school. High school was tough. I played baseball, but only because he forced me. Playing in the unpredictable Chicago spring was brutal. It snowed during some of the games, and there was no such thing as a snow delay in Chicago. You just froze and pretended to like it. Music became my escape. I would daydream, imagining soundtracks for the things that happened at night, creating scenarios where everything would turn out okay. I would dream of getting strong enough to save my mom and brothers from him one day. I had horrible grades, not because I lacked the ability, but because I spent my nights defending my mom. I had no safe place to study, no chance to focus. No one in the school system took my home life seriously enough to offer help. I half-heartedly completed homework, papers, school projects, and when classmates wanted to come over to do group work, I would rush them out before my dad would get home, terrified he'd get violent. I would race home and hide my report card or burn it in the woods so he wouldn't find out and lash out. Morning announcements. I joined a club where I would put together the first televised morning announcements at my school. It was like a morning news show with special segments at the end of the show. I wore many hats: editor, camera operator, writer, news anchor, and special segment producer. While others found it challenging, I thrived, creating special commercials for local businesses and gave students ideas for weekend activities. I was having fun, and for once, I didn't feel guilty about it. I thought it was something I would go to college for and exactly what I wanted to do. Senior year incident. On Easter, my senior year, my father got violently drunk, and without any of us realizing he'd been drinking. Suddenly, we heard a crash. He had smashed a wooden chair and thrown a piece of it across the family room, shattering a window. And at 17, I was strong enough to physically restrain him and prevent him from hurting anyone. And before things escalated, one of us called the sheriff, and he had been taken to a detox center. And when he came home, he threatened my mom again, telling her he'd kill her, or if he ever had left or broke, or if she tried to break up the family. He promised to use the courts to leave her with nothing, wielding her like a psychotic narcissist. Junior college. I was recruited to play baseball for a junior college in central Illinois. My father agreed to help financially, but only if I pursued a degree in law enforcement, doing exactly what he wanted. In the end, I had to take out loans and ended up paying for most of the education myself. He would show up to my practices and games screaming at me from behind the backstop as if I made an error or missed a pitch, and my grades suffered again, as if and I was 2 hours from home and constantly worried about my mom's safety. My first film, The Bad Dream. I took a film class that required a project, and I decided to make it therapeutic. At the time, I was plagued by anxiety and nightmares and worrying about my mom and my brothers. I created a short film about a character falling asleep, experiencing a cliche of a bad dream, the boogeyman, falling asleep, things disappearing, loved ones dying, only to wake up and realize it was all just a dream. The film won a local film festival, and that feeling of accomplishment was incredible. The baseball tournament. During a spring break baseball tournament at the Metrodome in Minnesota, my parents came to watch. It was the best game of my life. I hit 3 for 3, and 2 of them bounced over the center field wall for ground rule doubles, and the third one went down a third base line. As I slid into third base, both of my knees would tear. I never saw a doctor, and I knew I was done, physically and emotionally. And when we returned to college, I told my coach about my knees and how I had been forced to play and how I wasn't enjoying it. He understood and told me that the door was open if I ever healed. When I told my father, he screamed at me on the phone, "You're no longer my son. Don't ever come home. Don't ever talk to me again." I was okay with that. I wasn't okay with the fear of how he would take it out on my mom. She never told me what happened to her that night. I then became the wayward son. Later on, my mom's move. And after my mom finally got divorced, my father became increasingly irrational, refusing to move out of the house that my mom was trying to pack up and leave. My mom said that my father was stalking her, reading her emails, sending fraudulent messages to her clients, sabotaging her business. She had begun now dating her now husband, Joe. But my father escalated the harassment by making false accusations to Joe's company, claiming illegal activities, attempting to get him fired. His actions were horrifying, an example of character defamation resembling something out of a psychological thriller. He believed he was untouchable. Now I met Ashley, my current wife, on Match.com. Ashley and I met during a final week of our Match.com subscriptions. Ashley and I met during our last week. We have numerous stories of our past dates on other people on Match.com, but those are tales for another time. We quickly hit it off, but soon moved together in a condo in Lincoln Park, Chicago, along with my past dog Gertie, who is the brown dog of the current company. Lakeshore Drive and Chicago. I commuted by bike every day to work, witnessing some of Chicago's most intriguing and magical sights, experiences that most people miss, from sunrises to art to film shoots. I saw things on my bike you wouldn't see on a tour bus, car, or the L train. And despite extremes in weather, whether it was 80 degrees or negative 35 degrees, I wouldn't trade those moments for anything. I bought a GoPro to capture these experiences, and I also carried a point-and-shoot Canon camera, documenting waves crashing on the bike path along Lake Michigan, the Christmas market blanketed in 6 inches of snow, and a Greek butcher preparing fresh sausage in under 5 minutes right in front of me. I was building a library of Chicago street photography, and it was incredible. Flood's Grub the blog. This brings me into my food blog, inspired by Anthony Bourdain's TV show, which felt like a revelation to me. He became both an inspiration and a mentor. Watching him travel, unite people through food and culture, and promote peace was a striking contrast to my father's influence and echoed my mother's approach to life. My mom, who cooked for us, fostered peace at home, and shared her love for travel, art, and photography, seemed to be reflected in Bourdain's work. And now, a life-changing moment. It was a pivotal moment when I realized how deeply mental health issues can affect anyone. We all believe we can handle trauma by bottling it up, talking to therapists, or taking medication. But the truth is, no Band-Aid can truly heal a traumatized mind and soul as we might hope. When Ashley became pregnant with our daughter Piper, we kept our address private, but one night we came home to find a mysterious package at the door. It turned out to be from my father, and my reaction was immediate and intense, and my body went into shock. I blacked out for a moment, and this triggered severe PTSD and depression that lasted for months, and I began reliving traumatic memories and vivid blackout daydreams. and became terrified for my family's future. I tried to stay strong, but PTSD attacks worsened daily. And to cope, I started drinking vodka heavily, 4 to 6 shots or more, right after work to numb anxiety and avoid episodes at the dinner table. I also began taking Xanax, but the combination with vodka was disastrous. When Ashley received a job offer in Cincinnati, it seemed like the chance for a fresh start. Though I was reluctant to leave behind the Cubs, my mom, my favorite foods, and bike rides along the lakefront, I knew that being with Ashley and our daughter was what mattered most. So despite missing Chicago's Italian beefs, hot dogs without ketchup, and the most beautiful fall colors, we decided to make the move. Move to Cincy. There's never been a place that I felt as disoriented as I did when I came here. Even with Google Maps, the streets were anything but straight. In Chicago, everything was organized in a grid with a clear north, south, east, and west orientations, and here I felt utterly lost. I had no friends, no family, and no clear sense of self. My PTSD and drinking habits worsened. Despite attempts to find therapy that worked for me, it was straining my marriage and taking severe toll on my physical health. I was turning yellow. My limbs were swelling, my eyes were yellowing, and my nerves were deteriorating in my hands and my legs. I even went for a 90-day rehab in Florida for both alcohol and mental health. And for the first 2 weeks after returning home, I felt great, but soon after I encountered another trigger that set off my PTSD. The rehab center lacked the tools and strategies to help me manage those episodes once I got back into my daily life, and I crashed and went right back to where I started. Why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. And that was from Bruce Wayne's father in Batman Begins. One night, I felt completely defeated. I told my dog that I didn't want to wake up the next day. I took one last shot of vodka and I said goodbye to my dog. I laid down in bed and I hoped that I wouldn't wake up. But around 3 o'clock in the morning on January 25th, 2016, my dog jumped into my bed and placed both paws on my chest, and she rested her head on me. I believe that she saved my life that night. A few hours later, I left my dog with Ashley and I drove to the hospital. I spent a week there detoxing. And since then, I haven't touched alcohol. It's been 8 years, 7 months, and 24 days. I started working at Oakley Kroger, initially doing click lists to help manage my nerve pain. I thought the job would be great for my physical health. And soon I was offered a position at Murray's Cheese where I could get certified as a cheesemonger, and this excited me because it tied my passion for food and inappropriate jokes about cutting the cheese. During that time, I attended AA meetings twice a day for 90 days, and I was fortunate to find a sponsor who supported me through my recovery. And after detox, I had no cravings for alcohol, which seemed to be miraculous and angelic, thanks to my dog's intervention that night. I started a job at starting with tech support agent at quickly advanced to a digital marketing team at a local company. I also dedicated more time to Ashley and Piper, working to mend past wounds and create family memories. And in 2017, we bought a home in Madeira and began integrating ourselves into the community. And how we survive is what makes us who we are. Sharks. In 2018, and I promise this is almost done. In 2018, I had a life-changing experience that many people ask about, particularly about the tattoo on my right arm. No, I don't fish for sharks. No, I don't have a set of shark jaws on my wall at home. And in fact, I'm a conservationist dedicated to these magnificent creatures. Sharks, like crocodiles, are among the few survivors from the time of dinosaurs. Ashley's father once lived in Cabo San Lucas, where Cabo Shark Dive offers thrilling excursions. They take people 25 to 30 miles out into the Pacific Ocean They chum the water with bloody tuna parts and then jump into the water with makos, hammerheads, blue sharks, and silky sharks, and really whatever kind of shark shows up. It could be even great whites, whatever shark shows up. You have no cage, no protective gear, and no one's ever been bitten, believe it or not. Sure, it's nerve-wracking, but how much worse could a large shark be versus the demons of my past? I got into the water right away and I could see 3 9 to 10 foot sharks swimming around me in the blue water. I could see a fourth one in the distance in the photos, but one swam right up to me and got within a foot within my feet, and I could see its yellow eyes staring at me. And the feeling I received was not fear. They were welcoming me into their home. They almost gave me a sense of forgiveness. Imagine the genocide humans have been doing to these sharks for the oceans for centuries. How could the grudges that against people, how we hold grudges against people with other countries, but the shark with one, but the shark that has that could rip me into two pieces with one snap was welcoming me into its home and forgiving me and not starting a war. What a beautiful concept. And we need to pay attention to nature and not, you know what I mean. Flood's Grub Catering. It kind of stinks to be right after Bailey's, but in this town and city, people rave about their local chili and coney dogs, and I'll give you credit where credit's due. Grippos and graters are delicious. But we're not going to talk about the chili. But when you leave, you start to miss those homegrown flavors. And growing up in Chicago, deep dish pizza was for tourists and family gatherings. But it was the Chicago Italian beef sandwiches, fresh bakery bread, homemade Mexican al pastor tacos, and giardiniera, Polish and Italian sausages, and out of this world desserts I truly craved. These quality fresh foods are hard to find here, except for Deanna Bailey over there. So while working full-time, I reignited Flood's Grub as a catering side hustle. I started cooking these dishes at home and selling them to people for their holiday parties, neighborhood events, or whatever. The business took off quickly, and Ashley was supportive but frustrated with the damage I did to her pans and the constant smell of garlic and spices. Operating from home without permits also was less than ideal. Despite these challenges, filming my creations for social media sparked my creativity, which led me to these crossroads. Should I invest in permits for a proper kitchen, or should I pursue film school and return to my roots in photography and videography? And ultimately, I decided to shut down Flood's Grub. Full Sail University. I discovered Full Sail University, which wasn't easy to get into. I had to dig up and send my high school transcripts from both high school and college despite my crappy grades. Convincing admissions that my D in math should count as a passing grade so I could skip retaking it was a challenge. And I was determined to start school again at age 39. And soon after classes began, the pandemic struck. And with the world shutting down, finding an on-site internship became a challenge. And my solution was Crossroads Church. They had a huge cinema camera, a huge budget for production, and seemed to be open to helping everyone. I spent a few months there creating films for my internship, including during a temporary church shutdown. The hands-on experience I gained was invaluable, and thanks to my friends Tyler, Noah, and Derek at Crossroads, I learned how to handle every position on the film set and became the best mentors I had in my career. Mom's pulmonary fibrosis and scleroderma. During my studies and work, a Christmas came when we couldn't return to Chicago due to the shutdown, and my brothers, Ashley and I, had a Zoom Christmas where we learned that my mom had been diagnosed with terminal pulmonary fibrosis and scleroderma. My brothers and Ashley knew before I did and were concerned about how I'd react due to my PTSD. We all gathered in a room for the news, and I was deeply upset, but managed to handle it better than everybody expected, and that was probably due to my sobriety. At this time, I was working on a class project where I wrote and created a film that reflected my emotions, and I called it The Bad Dream, which was a reimagining of my earlier film. And the film depicts a father during the pandemic who, while preparing for his while preparing for work in his home office, hears about a school closure and receives the news of his layoff. The story intensifies when he learns via text from his stepfather that his mother is in the hospital with COVID and could die, and overwhelmed with his experiences, has a panic attack and blacks out into a vivid dream filled with his deepest fears. And the film proved to be deeply therapeutic, though it predicted a reality that would come to pass. Ashley's cancer. As I was nearing the end of my studies at Full Sail, Ashley noticed a suspicious spot on the back of her ear. It looked like a large freckle, and it turned out to be skin cancer. The doctors had to remove a significant portion on the top of her ear to just reconstruct it. A few weeks later, Ashley discovered a lump on the back of her breast, or under her breast, which also was diagnosed as cancer. She needed a double mastectomy and a reconstruction of both breasts. I told her that I would put a pause on school and focus on her health. She wanted to celebrate her health and my graduation together, so I never paused and she never gave up. She battled the disease like a warrior and now helps others in the area. I don't think either of us forgot the moments of her recovering in a lazy boy in the living room, myself filming a cooking show in the kitchen for school during my lunch break at work, then taking breaks between cooking to help her clean out her tubes from her surgery. Life was exhausting, but we did it. Awards and salutatorian. I can never say that word. Come August 2021, for the first time in my life, I graduated with straight A's and 3 course instructor awards. And I graduated top of my class. Ashley recovered and is now healthy and works out almost every day. And as far as we know, she's cancer-free. She's right there. I'm the case study for someone who has a kid on paper, I'm the case study for someone who has a kid on paper, like the unfocused, unmotivated kid in class. And everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. And at 40 years old, I am proof with straight A's and graduating top of my class. I am not the kid that my father and teachers stereotype me as. And when you meet the kid who's struggling, first ask yourself, what's going on at home? It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. November 9th, 2022, and this might be the hardest day that I've faced, and I'm still numb and clinging on to her voice, urging me to be strong. I was in bed with my daughter, reading a book, when we tried to video chat in with my mom. She had recently survived Hurricane Ian with my stepdad, Joe. Though they experienced minimal damage, the devastation to Fort Myers Beach and the surrounding community was severe. We had convinced my mom to move to Florida almost 2 years prior from Chicago, hoping that they'd enjoy her remaining years in warmer weather, easing the strain on her lungs caused by the harsh Chicago winters. Once the storm passed and the all clear was given, she stepped outside to assess the damage. Unfortunately, she inhaled the tiny particles of debris still lingering in the air, which quickly led to pneumonia. They tried to get her to a local hospital, but it was overwhelmed with patients and staff displaced by the storm. Misdiagnosed as having COVID due to her coughing, she was tested repeatedly. Finally, they diagnosed her with pneumonia and sent her home with an oxygen tank, promising daily visits from a nurse and the doctors. Despite this, the condition worsened. As we were reading this together, she was coughing and muted herself, and after we finished and said goodnight, I texted her, "I love you." 10 minutes later, she didn't respond. I lost my best friend right after we said our goodbyes. Her heart and lungs failed her, and she passed away in her bed. And my stepdad said it was anything but peaceful. She never smoked. She was an avid jogger all of her life. She was healthy and she didn't deserve such a painful and unjust end, nor the suffering inflicted by my father. I also discovered that shortly after the move, my father moved 10 minutes away from her. I can only assume it was to torment her further. But I find solace in knowing that she's at peace now and free from the pain and possibility of him ever hurting her again. I can only hope he will not be allowed to where she is at. Brown Dog in the future. After we celebrated her life, I left the corporate world behind and I felt it was time to honor her memory by embracing bravery and channeling her strength into something meaningful. That's why I founded Brown Dog Films, named after my late dog Gertie, who saved my life during a dark time. Her name embodies perseverance and vitality when everything seemed lost. The Chicago star in our logo represents home, and the 4 stars in the other logos and on my arm symbolize home, my brothers, my mom, and my loved ones, Ashley and Piper. Brown Dog Films is dedicated to making a positive impact through photography and film. I want to show families that despite their challenges, they can look and feel beautiful together. I aim to help businesses tell their stories, recognize their struggles, and celebrate their journeys. And I also seek to capture travel destinations and delicious foods, letting viewers taste the flavors, feel the textures, and experience emotions through my lens. Anthony Bourdain's legacy profoundly inspired me. His commitment to fostering peace and connection through the camera resonates deeply through my own artistic vision. I hope to carry forward his spirit of storytelling and creativity. The next chapter for Brown Dog Films is an exciting evolution. We'll continue focusing on photography and film for local restaurants and businesses, and portraits for high school seniors and families. I currently have 2 new contractors, Angie Bolin and Olivia Harris, taking phenomenal photography with me and helping me out. We're also expanding into new areas based on feedback, corporate training videos, digital marketing, sales, voiceover work with a new partner and coverage of corporate events. I have a gentleman named Stephen Eslick creating amazing things with me and has replaced my nasally Chicago accent with most of my voiceover work. So we're growing, and our ultimate goal is to create a profound impact by collaborating with doctors, therapists who specialize in family trauma, cancer, alcoholism, narcissism, and other critical areas. And currently I'm working with Dr. James Weeks and the other team at One Heart Mental Health Collaborative. And Ingrid Keating at Lotus Integrative Therapy on a personal project related to my recent shoulder surgery. We're producing a documentary that explores alternative treatments to opioids, such as cannabis, acupuncture, mental health strategies, and yoga. Through visual storytelling, we aim to offer support to children and families and helping them to avoid PTSD challenges that my brothers and I faced. Many people grow up in broken or abusive environments and continue to struggle with mental health issues throughout their lives. With Brown Dog Films, I want to use my skills and platform as a catalyst for change. Together, we can break the cycle. And one day, when I reunite with my mom, sharing an Italian beef and an iced tea while watching our dogs roll in the grass and splash in the kiddie pool, I hope she'll tell me that she's found peace. And I hope she'll see that through Brown Dog Films, I've honored her memory by making a difference by helping others. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. And here comes Tom.